Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Throwing in the Towel. Each week I dive deep into the NFL season and make the tough call on which team it's time to give up on, whether it's due to a string of injuries, a losing streak, or just plain bad luck. Some teams just don't have what it takes to make it to the postseason, and in this week 12 episode I'll be throwing in the towel on week 12. Bit of a tough decision here, but as we get further along with these episodes, the calls do get a little bit tougher, but they will be made nonetheless. So make sure you stay tuned until the end to see which team I throw in the towel on this week. And as always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more weekly NFL insights. And with that, let's go ahead and get into this week's episode, started with the AFC East, which has no representatives this week, as the Bills are on a bye and the Dolphins got a win, while the towel had been thrown in on the Patriots and the Jets. Moving on to the AFC North, which has a lone representative in the Steelers, and it's understandable that the Steelers are looking for a spark offensively. The team has struggled in the red zone this season, but it's also fair to wonder if a two-headed approach at quarterback is going to give the Steelers offense more momentum or stifle it. Musical quarterbacks is not the reason that the Steelers lost in Cleveland. Rather, it was TJ Watt and the Pittsburgh defense that were uncharacteristically quiet against the Browns offense that has struggled big time this season. Now, Pittsburgh is still up on Baltimore in the loss column with a head-to-head win, so the odds are still in their favor to win the division. But Pittsburgh's erratic offense could become a real issue come postseason time. Over in the AFC South, we have the Colts and the Texans this week, and the Colts are stuck in the in-between. They aren't a bad team, they also aren't a good team. And the Indy defense had little answer for the juggernaut that is the Lions offense, and the Colts offense struggled throughout that game. After losing 4 of 5, it's fair to question how long the Colts can wait before they must consider a plan B under center. Now, I wouldn't say plan B this season because they already tried that with Joe Flacco. It did not work. And the reason why the Colts might want to consider a plan B after the season is because Plan B under center after the season is because Anthony Richardson just hasn't been good as a passer in the NFL. Now, in fairness to him, he does need help though. Yes, he does need to play better, but it doesn't help him when his pass catchers are dropping passes that would be touchdowns. Richardson might never be an efficient operator, but it's highly difficult for him to become anything when plays aren't being made by those around him, or when the plays are being made, they're called back by a penalty. And for the Texans, it just becomes a lot harder to trust this team as a contender in the AFC. Taking on the 2-win Titans at home, the Texans were outplayed on both sides of the ball. CJ Stroud set an impossible standard during his rookie season, and he has been struggling to maintain that standard as a sophomore. A year ago, the discussion was already centered on whether Stroud was worthy to be considered a top 5 quarterback. This season, he's simply trying to remain efficient, which he struggled to achieve. Houston still has a 2-game lead in the AFC South. I still think they win the division, but that status as a division winner is more of an indictment of the division than anything the Texans have done as of late, and it's very possible that not only will this team host a playoff game that they probably shouldn't be hosting, but they will most likely be one and done in the postseason. And so we move on to the AFC West, which has a lone representative this week in the Los Angeles Chargers. And the Chargers came into Monday looking for only their second win of the season against a playoff caliber team, Denver being the only team they beat that is currently over 500. And they appeared up to the challenge until J.K. Dobbins went down with an injury and did not return. And pretty much that kind of that ended the run game and put things into the hands of Justin Herbert, which he did try his best to carry this team, but he doesn't really have any weapons outside of Ladd McConkey, so he couldn't really do much. To their credit, they did make things interesting late, but still lost convincingly to the Ravens, and this is who the Chargers are in year 1 under Jim Harbaugh. The future is bright, but Los Angeles is going to beat the teams it's supposed to beat and struggle against those we're likely to see in late January. And if J.K. Dobbins is forced to miss extended time, LA might not even make it to the postseason. So with that, we move on to the Division Representatives this week, which has the Steelers, the Colts, and the Chargers. Steelers from the North, Colts from the South, Chargers from the West. And of these 3 teams, who's going to represent the AFC this week? Well, you can probably take a guess. It's the getting too far ahead of myself here. It's the AFC Indianapolis Colts, that are the representative for the AFC this week. Simply put, the Colts are just in a tough spot where they're just kind of a mediocre football team stuck with a quarterback that's not very good, and then the backup isn't any better. So pretty much the Colts are just kind of, as I said, they're kind of stuck in the in-between. And now we move on from the AFC to the NFC. As you saw in the NFC East, we have a lone representative in the Washington Commanders, and this is a team in trouble. It's not just that the Commanders have lost 3 straight games after a 7-2 start. It's how they lost and who they lost against. Even in a loss against the Cowboys, Jayden Daniels looked exceptional as the Commanders tried to make a comeback, but the team has hit a wall recently, losing 3 consecutive games. Between September and late October, Washington's defense overachieved and has regressed to the mean. So I don't know how things are going to shake out for this team going forward. They still are in position to claim a playoff spot, but they certainly have some issues to work through, mainly in the kicking game as well too. That was a game that they should have won against the Cowboys, and they did not. Over in the NFC North, no representatives this week. The Lions, Vikings, and Packers all got wins they all got wins this week. Moving on from the NFC North to the NFC South, which also has no representatives this week, as the Falcons were on a bye and the Buccaneers, coming off a bye, got a much needed win to get some much needed momentum, which, depending on who you are, maybe you believe in that, maybe you don't. But nonetheless, the Buccaneers got a big win over the Giants. And now we move on lastly to the NFC West, which has 3 representatives this week, as the Seahawks were the only team to win. So we start with the 49ers, and speaking of teams in trouble, this is a team that's probably in deeper trouble than the Commanders. Injuries have ravaged this team all season long, and the team may have reached a breaking point. Without Brock Purdy and Trent Williams, the San Francisco offense struggled to get anything going. The defense played its worst game in recent memory on Sunday, and the 49ers got blasted to fall into last place in the NFC West. There's a serious lack of physicality on both sides of the ball, and San Francisco's defense has taken steps in the wrong direction under first-year coordinator Nick Sorensen, and I don't think it'd be a surprise to anybody, not to me anyway, if Kyle Shanahan does fire his defensive coordinator after one season for the second straight season. For the Rams, this team still has an outside chance of stealing the NFC West, and even if they do, they might not get past the wildcard round. This team is a fun mix of veterans like Matthew Stafford and young budding stars like Jared Verse and Brendan Fisk. However, it's not a complete team, and that is shown against quality opponents like the Eagles. Los Angeles has holes in its defensive back 7 that can't be fixed in season. It has an offensive line that can't adequately protect Stafford for a full 4 quarters, and those are issues that will hurt the Rams in the postseason and could prevent them from even getting there. And lastly, the Cardinals. Over the past several weeks, this team has been the NFC West hottest team, winners of 4 straight. Coming out of the bye, the Redbirds had an opportunity to take a firm grasp on the division lead, and so much for that. That did not happen. Just when you think Jonathan Gannett and Drew Petzing have Arizona headed in the right direction, well, turns out they're not heading in the right direction, as Sunday's game indicated. Now, to their credit, the defense is improving, but it can't play consistently well. The offense looks great when things are clicking, and a lot like the bad Cliff Kingsbury years when they're not. At some point, the Cardinals, in a tough game, should probably forge a better game plan than poking Kyler Murray with the football and telling him to do something, because clearly in that game, that plan did not work. And so with that, we move on to the division representatives for this week, which will be the Commanders in the East and the 49ers in the West. And between these two teams, now this was an interesting choice here to make, and maybe to some it's quite obvious, but for this week, I went with the San Francisco 49ers as the division representative. And it's crazy to think that this team, at this point in the season, that this is where they are. The 49ers of all teams, a team that has been a consistent winner. But truth be told, this 49ers team has just looked and felt different than the team from last season. So with that, we move on to the recap section, which we are, as you can see here, the Panthers took it down to the wire with the Chiefs. Congrats to them on that effort right there. The Giants, well, they tried Tommy DeVito at quarterback. It did not work, but Brian Daboll still believes in him, so that's good for them. The Titans got a big win over the Texans right here, although I still don't see them, it's just a feel-good thing. The Jaguars got through their bye and did not fire their head coach, which is a surprising move, but I respect it nonetheless. The Patriots, another tough loss here in this game too. There's only so much Drake May can do at quarterback for his team. Browns, big win, playing spoiler, against the Steelers right there. The Raiders, another tough loss and tough game too. Gardner Minshew broke his collarbone, so they are back to start Aiden O'Connell. The Jets got a bye, so I think that was much deserved for this team. Not because they earned it, but just because I think everybody hit a break, Jets players included, from this team. The Saints also on the bye. Cowboys got a nice little bounce back win against the Commanders. And the Bears, they continue to improve on offense and continue to play better, but unfortunately came up short despite making a pretty good comeback to at least get the game to overtime. And with that, we move on to this week's team. As you recall, the Colts representing the AFC and the 49ers in the NFC. Between those two teams, who is this week's representative? It's the Indianapolis Colts. Ultimately, I'm going to go ahead and crown the Texans as AFC South winners. And for the Colts, I just don't really see it for this team this year. I understood the mission objective of, continue to trot out Anthony Richardson with the hopes that he will establish himself as your franchise quarterback. But it has not happened. And as I talked about earlier, it might be time for the Colts to consider another option at quarterback, a sort of plan B option. I don't think it's time to give up on Richardson just yet, but I think you might need to bring in some competition that is not Joe Flacco to try to see if you can kickstart things for this Colts team. And it might even be time to change defensive coordinator as well, to remove Gus Bradley and bring in somebody else on that defensive side. I still like Shane Steichen as the head coach, and I still like Chris Ballard as a general manager, so I don't think changes need to be made there. But nonetheless, I think this team has not found its franchise quarterback in Anthony Richardson, and I don't think they'll be able to win enough games to make a wild card spot, and I don't think they'll be able to win more games than the Texans to take the AFC South, especially since the Texans already swept them earlier this season. So that is this week's team, the Indianapolis Colts, and that does it for this week's episode of Throwing in the Towel. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to hit that like button down below, and I'll see you all next time.